Ever wondered if God is actually speaking to you? What if you're just not hearing it? Let's start here. Jesus said, "My sheep hear my voice." This isn't just poetic, it's a promise. God's voice is there, but only those who truly follow him can hear it. It's one of the purest connections we can have with him. Imagine the creator of the universe wanting to talk with you. In Revelation, it says God stands at the door and knocks, not barging in, just knocking, waiting for you to open up. If you do, he promises to come in and stay with you. Loren Cunningham once said something beautiful. He said, God isn't just alive and ruling over the universe. God cares deeply and wants to speak to his children personally. That's powerful. We're talking about a real conversation here, not just a feeling or an impression. The Bible shows us that God spoke to people directly. Just look at Moses. It says God spoke to him face to face, like a friend. Knowing God's voice isn't some mystical thing. It's actually a simple relationship. But it's rare and it's deep. When you hear God, you're experiencing one of the most intimate connections possible. Here's where a lot of people get confused. They think meditation means emptying your mind or saying chants. But biblical meditation, it's just listening to God. That's it. Nothing mystical, nothing weird. God has always been a communicator. He spoke to prophets, to Jesus, to apostles. And the amazing part, he's still speaking today. The real question is, are we tuned in? Jesus taught and he acted. He didn't just tell stories, he lived the truth. And that's the model for us, to be both listeners and doers, both taught and teacher. So here's the challenge. Are you ready to believe that God still speaks? And if he's speaking, are you willing to listen? Listening is more than just hearing sound. Real listening means you're open, attentive, and willing to act. But how often do we really take time to listen? We say we want to walk with God, to hear him, to feel his guidance. But do we actually give him space to talk? Or are we too busy filling the silence with our own words? Think about any close relationship. If one person does all the talking, how close can that relationship actually be? At some point, the other person stops sharing because they know you're not listening. Prayer isn't just about telling God what's on your mind. It's also about pausing and waiting to hear what's on his. That's how you move from talking at God to talking with him. And yes, God responds, but he's not going to shout over your thoughts. You've got to be still, quiet, and actually open to hear. God made you for this relationship. It's his desire for us to have a deep, intimate connection. Without it, life can feel empty, like something's missing. Because it is. Everyone wants to be heard, right? Even kids just want their parents to listen. That's what we're wired for. And God, he's no different. He wants you to care about what he's saying. So next time you pray, try this. Don't just list your requests. Instead, ask, God, what do you want to say to me? Then wait and listen. Don't brush it off and think, God never talks to me, because he does. But it's on us to slow down enough to actually catch it. There's no intimacy if you don't listen. How can you know someone's heart if you're too busy with your own words to let them share? We all know God speaks through his word, but it's more than that. He also whispers to our spirit. You've just got to be willing to tune in. Take marriage, for example. A relationship where only one person speaks is doomed. Intimacy needs two-way communication. Always, God created us in his image. That wasn't random. It was his way of giving us the ability to connect with him, to understand and feel his presence. Think about that for a moment. We're not just here by chance. We're designed with purpose, with a part of God's nature within us. It's this unique design that allows us to know him in a way no other creation can. Because we're made in his image, we have the ability to listen to his voice. Just like a child recognizes the voice of a parent, we're able to recognize God's voice when he speaks. This connection is personal and real, and it's open to everyone who is willing to listen. But listening isn't always easy. The world is full of noise, distractions, and voices competing for our attention. To hear God's voice, we have to make space for it. We have to be willing to tune out the world and focus on him, allowing his words to reach our hearts. When we take time to listen, God can guide us, comfort us, and even correct us. His voice becomes a source of wisdom and strength that helps us navigate life. In a world that often feels uncertain, his voice is steady and sure, reminding us that he's always with us. And the beautiful part? God doesn't force us to listen. He invites us. He stands at the door and knocks, patiently waiting for us to let him in. This relationship is a gift, one that grows deeper the more we choose to spend time with him and hear what he has to say. So how well do you really know God's character? How does he think, act, or feel? These aren't mysteries left unsolved. They're found in his word. This book, the Bible, is more than words on a page. It's God's voice, his thoughts, his heart laid bare. If you don't let it into your life, you're missing out on true richness. Wealth, status, luxury, none of it compares to the power of understanding God's word. Real wealth is in knowing God deeply. Knowing the Bible isn't about intellect, it's about intimacy. When you read it, you're literally connecting with God's mind and heart. Jesus often withdrew to listen and pray. He didn't just talk, he listened to his Father's voice. What was he listening for? For guidance, for comfort, for strength. Sometimes we miss God's voice because we're distracted. It's like the parable of the sower. If we're not careful, God's word gets choked out by the noise around us. Our distractions can steal God's message right out of our hearts. We hear it, but it never sinks in. If we're not fully present, we lose it. At the end of the day, if you truly want an intimate relationship with God, it starts with being still, being quiet, and being open. Because God is speaking, and when you listen, you'll hear him in ways you never expected.